4 video channels, 1 dashcam, and a promise of outstanding video quality. This is the award-winning Botslab G980H. But how does it perform in real-world scenarios? And more importantly, is it the right dashcam for you? Let's inspect. Hey, so great to see you. I'm Michael, a modular dashcam. But before we begin, a quick note. This review is based entirely on personal experience after using the camera extensively and testing most of its key features in real-world conditions. As always, it's not a sponsored sales pitch. My goal is very simple: help you decide whether this product deserves your money. And since YouTube increasingly decides what stays in your feed and disappears forever, consider subscribing if you appreciate detailed, balanced reviews based on actual testing rather than marketing claims. Now, if you want the short version first, the Botslab G980H, which is a 4-channel camera, is one of the most unique and flexible dashcams currently available. The front and rear image quality is good rather than class-leading, but the real story here is this modular design where you can remove the sides and you have the ability to cover angles that most competing dash cameras simply cannot. So if your priority is maximum coverage with minimal installation complexity, this camera immediately becomes a very interesting option. Let's start with the daytime footage analysis. While you're watching, it is worth mentioning something important. Many dashcam manufacturers deliberately apply aggressive sharpening and contrast enhancement. The reason is simple: it often helps license plates stand out more clearly and can make footage appear more detailed at first glance. Botslab follows a similar approach here. Personally, I would prefer slightly more natural processing, but we have to remember what this device is designed for. This is a dashcam, not an action camera, not a filmmaking tool, and in that context, the tuning makes sense and overall the results look quite good. The front camera records in 4K resolution when operating in dual-channel mode. Likely, the UHD is interpolated, similar to their previous models. Once you move to 3 or 4-channel mode, the front recording drops to 3K. Footage is recorded at 25 frames per second using the high-efficiency video codec, which is currently one of the better choices for balancing image quality and storage requirements. The bitrate sits around 30 megabits per second, which is respectable. This allows footage to hold up reasonably well even when cropped. A 2-time zoom still looks convincing, and even a 4-time crop remains usable without completely falling apart. The storage consumption is also quite manageable. 1 minute of front camera footage occupies roughly 216 megabytes. The rear camera records in 1080p, and if I'm being fair, the quality is more average than exceptional. This is not unusual though. Multi-channel dash cameras often prioritize coverage over maximizing image quality from every individual camera. Then we have the side views, and this is where the G980H starts separating itself from most of the competitors, because each side module can be adjusted independently, allowing you to point it exactly where you need coverage. One can be used as an interior camera to monitor the cabin, the other one can be positioned toward the driver's side window, which is super useful if you frequently interact with customers, delivery recipients, security personnel, or law enforcement officers. Very few dash cameras offer this level of flexibility. Depending on the package that you purchase, the G980H can operate as a dual-channel, a triple-channel, or a full 4-channel system. The night footage is of course much more interesting because it shows the truth about the image sensor performance. Let's start with the positives. Noise levels are very low, and in many situations the camera captures a respectable amount of detail around the vehicle. Exposure management is generally stable and the footage remains easy to interpret. That said, this is not one of those modern flagship dashcams built around the latest Sony Starvis 2 technology, and as a result, shadow recovery and dynamic range are not among the strongest I've seen. Dark areas can occasionally lose detail, and strong light sources may overwhelm parts of the image. I also noticed what appears to be slight amount of vibration under certain driving conditions. Whether this comes from the mounting system or the overall weight of the multi-camera setup is difficult to say, but it can occasionally reduce the fine detail. It's not a deal breaker, but something worth knowing. I wasn't able to test the optional CPL filter, which should help reduce reflections and slightly improve image quality under certain conditions, especially at night. As expected, the rear camera faces an even tougher challenge at night, constantly battles oncoming headlights while simultaneously trying to preserve surrounding details, and the results are acceptable, though not remarkable. The side cameras perform exactly as what you would expect. Their effectiveness depends entirely on the available lighting, and since there is no infrared illumination involved, they rely solely on sensor performance. In most urban environments, they are usable, but don't expect miracles in complete darkness. Looking at the camera itself, I think the most impressive part of the G980H is actually its design. The packaging feels premium and well organized. Everything inside has its place. The main unit uses a quick-release mounting system, which makes removal easy when needed. Botslab also continues to offer one of my favorite features, a front lens that allows roughly 15 degrees of angle adjustment. Surprisingly few manufacturers provide this flexibility, yet it can compensate certain installation mistakes. Control is handled entirely through the touchscreen. There are no physical buttons anywhere on the device, except for the power button, of course. One practical consideration is the microSD card slot placement. Since it sits near the upper section of the unit, you will usually need to tilt or partially remove the camera in order to access the card. The package includes a power adapter with an additional USB port, along with the optional side camera modules if you have purchased the corresponding version. A 128GB microSD card is included, so you don't need to buy anything on your own. I would, though, recommend thinking about a U3 rated card with higher capacity if you plan to store a greater amount of footage. Up to 512 gigs are supported. When we move beyond the image quality and the design, the feature list becomes quite impressive. There is some confusion regarding the exact hardware specifications, though. Depending on the source, Botslab references different camera components, and I was unable to independently verify the exact image sensor on the front or the processor used in my unit. What we do know is that the camera includes inbuilt GPS, there's a supercapacitor instead of a battery for improved reliability in extreme temperatures, dual-band Wi-Fi, voice control support, and a companion smartphone application. Botslab also promotes a tool-free installation process, and honestly, they are not wrong. Installation is indeed easy. I highly recommend using the included transparent adhesive film before attaching the mount directly to the windshield. It makes future removal significantly easier. Due to the size of the main units and the optional modules, you're going to want to spend a few minutes planning the ideal mounting position. Make sure the cameras remain within the windshield wiper coverage area. And once you've found the right spot and connected the power, the installation process becomes very straightforward. Even when adding the rear camera, the cable routing remains relatively manageable. You do have to be creative here, though. As for setup, simple and intuitive menus. Personally, I still prefer physical buttons for these dash cameras. The icons on the display here are fairly small, and the high pixel density means touch interaction occasionally requires more precision than what I would like. Still, the interface is easy to understand. You can adjust exposure, switch between the viewing angles, configure recording preferences, and even use the rear camera as a parking aid. If you purchase the optional hardwire kit, the parking mode becomes available as well. Just keep in mind that the hardwire installation is more complex and may justify professional assistance. The software ecosystem here is surprisingly mature. Through the smartphone app, you can configure the camera, download the footage, review the recordings, and access additional telemetry data, and the experience is polished and modern. At the same time, if privacy is a concern, you're not forced into using any of it. There is no mandatory activation process, and the camera functions perfectly well without connecting to cloud services. Now, before the verdict, let's talk about the shortcomings. In my opinion, the biggest weaknesses are the absence of physical buttons, the somewhat inconvenient microSD card slot placement, and the fact that there is currently no 4G or cloud-connected version available. In the end, the G980H by Botslab is one of the most flexible dash cameras that I've tested. As a traditional front and rear setup, now it doesn't really redefine image quality, has more of a catching up role. I would have loved to see stronger emphasis on low light performance and wider dynamic range, but that's not really what makes the product special. What makes it special is the ability to control these two extra units on the sides and cover unique angles while keeping the installation surprisingly simple. The adjustable side modules create use cases that most competing dash cameras simply cannot address without additional cameras, extra mounts, or significantly more complicated wiring. And I think the design is excellent, and I completely understand why the G980H earned recognition as a CES Innovation Award honoree. So if you work in deliveries, taxi services, ride-sharing, or any profession where cabin monitoring and side window coverage matter, I'd be very interested to hear about your experience with this camera. Which are the angles that you most often use, and are you happy with the image quality, especially at night? And if you don't own the camera, but you have a strong opinion about it, I'd love to hear that too. For more information and the best available deals, check the links in the video description. And remember, reviews like this one can make technology look exciting. But before buying anything new, always ask yourself one simple question: will you actually use it? Take good care, drive safely and responsibly. I'm the TechMishka, and gotta see you in the next one.